Guys, good Tuesday afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. We're live in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the country and the world on the I Love CVille Network. I'm literally doing the intro to this program as I retweet across 15 platforms, Twitter accounts, this show. So this is a topic that was put on my radar by Steve Harvey. And Steve, I appreciate you putting this on my radar. Steve, I will welcome you to the program. Someone tag Steve Harvey and let him know that I'm giving him props now. He sent this to me. Steve Harvey, of course, is running for Board of Supervisors in the Whitehall district, challenging, currently the incumbent's multi-term incumbent is Ann Malik. Not sure yet if Supervisor Malik will run again, but challenger Steve Harvey has already run for the seat and lost in 2019? Memory serves correct? Yeah, 2019 to Supervisor Malik. So he sends me an email moments before the show, just like friend of the program, Jeff Camrath sent us an email moments before the show about the urgency of normal COVID toolkit. And just like that, you, the viewer and listener, dictate the pace and tempo of the show and the content we cover. The show is malleable, and we adjust to you guys on the fly. So a lot to cover on today's show. Is audio good there, Judah?
I believe it is. I'm not hearing the hum anymore.
Okay, because just want to make sure. Earl, it sounds good on our end, but I appreciate your feedback, Earl in Scottsville. We know we love you, Earl Smith, and we're very grateful for the feedback of all viewers and listeners on how we can improve audio broadcasts here on the show. It is live programming, so as anybody who's ever done live programming, live music, you understand we literally are adapting on the fly, and we need the feedback from viewers and listeners to improve the broadcast. Thank you, Earl Smith. So this is a topic we need to cover. And first, let's welcome and thank Skooma Boutique Dispensary for being a part of the show. The best dispensary in Charlottesville is Skooma Boutique Dispensary, located on the Charlottesville downtown mall. Skooma Boutique Dispensary with certificates of analyses for everything in the store. And of course, Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner, guys, is the best of the best when it comes to sports medicine, chiropractic care, and just integrated medicine in totality. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. So Steve Harvey, he challenged Ann Malik, Whitehall District, for a spot on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors in 2019. Supervisor Malik has a stranglehold on that seat. Neil, is it 3 terms Supervisor Malik has served in Whitehall? I believe it's 3. Neil can correct me if I'm wrong there. I believe it's 3 terms Supervisor Malik has served in Whitehall. So here's the topic du jour today, and we will welcome LinkedIn to the program. Live streaming on LinkedIn now as we improve the network. Dude, I'll cut to the chase. There's not a platform that reaches more than the I Love CVille Network in this community. And I understand the responsibility that comes with that. I truly do. So here's the topic. There's a survey that I've posted in the comment section of every social media platform you're watching the show upon. And after covering it today in the program, you will see it far and wide tomorrow, the following day, from media colleagues. The title of the survey, and again, the link is in the comment section or on social platforms that you're watching the show upon. The title of the survey is this: Business Survey, Potential Tax Increases, and the survey concludes on February 4th. The body of the survey, the copy points in the survey, before it asks you questions on the survey, there's 9 questions, is this, and I'm gonna read it verbatim. In Albemarle County, this directly impacts you. City of Charlottesville residents, this directly impacts you. Residents of Central Virginia, Fluvanna, Orange, Louisa, Greene, Nelson, Buckingham. Do you like going to downtown Charlottesville? Do you like going to the city of Charlottesville, to Albemarle County? Do you like patronizing businesses in Albemarle? Well, those businesses may be potentially more expensive to patronize. Here's the body of the survey. Albemarle County is currently in the planning stage of developing a budget for fiscal year 2023, which begins on July 1, 2022. One concept being explored by county staff is a rebalancing of the county's revenue mix, which is currently dominated by real property taxes. The Board of Supervisors directed staff to solicit input from affected industries on the potential impact of increasing the tax rate for food and beverage as well as transit occupancy. The food and beverage tax, also known as the meals tax, is a tax collected by Albemarle County from the owners of restaurants, and the transit occupancy tax, also known as TOT, is a tax collected by Albemarle County from the owners of hotels, motels, inns, Airbnbs, and bed and breakfast establishments. The food and beverage tax is paid by residents and visitors alike, and the TOT tax is predominantly paid for by visitors. The current meals tax rate is 4%, with the maximum taxing authority at 6%. The current TOT rate is 5%. The maximum rate allowable is not defined, but 2% must go to tourism marketing. Then the survey questions are as follows. Again, I have posted this across all social platforms. Are you listening to the live stream? Because I'm getting feedback from listeners on this as we speak.
I'm listening to it.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I'm at your mercy here. Here are the questions in the survey. Question 1. Are you associated with A, lodging property, a restaurant, or both? Question 2, what's the name of your business? Question 3, do you believe Albemarle County should increase the transit occupancy tax or food and beverage meals tax for any reason? Question 4, if taxes should be increased, where should the additional tax revenue go? Question 5, which tax mechanism is most detrimental to the business's success? Question 6, is this business or at least one business location in Albemarle County? Question 7, transit occupancy tax is a tax collected by Albemarle from owners of hotels, motels, inns, bed and breakfasts, and breakfast establishments, B&B establishments. The TOT is predominantly paid for by visitors. Currently, the TOT rate is 5%. The maximum rate allowable is not defined, but 2% must go to tourism. And then they say strongly agree with this, disagree with this, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And then the last question, the second to last question is similar about the meals tax. Do you agree with it, strongly, disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree? If you want to hang tight there, that'd be good. And then there's a field for other comments. So I was not going to lead with this. The lead of the show was going to be the University of Virginia choosing to no longer disenroll students based on booster status. That was going to be the lead. The viewers and listeners of the program influenced the show, and Steve Harvey, who's running for a seat on Board of Supervisors, put this on my radar, and as a result, it is a topic we are covering to lead the program. I have said on this show numerous occasions that tax increases most impact members of our community living on the financial margin. I have said numerous times on this network that tax increases, if we are not careful, can in fact be regressive instead of progressive. Here's a prime example, and I'm going to switch from the county of Albemarle and its jurisdiction to the city of Charlottesville and its jurisdiction. In Charlottesville City, assessments on real estate jumped this year. Now, assessments jumping on real estate, as we know, yield homeowners, real estate owners, paying jurisdictions more money. That's part of owning a piece of property. However, when assessments on real estate increase at the same time that a tax rate increases, then you're getting double whammied. You're getting double whammy. And City Council is currently, and you know who put this very succinctly? Is Kenneth Martin on social media. I'm going to read Kenneth Martin, a Charlottesville staple, his Facebook post from a few days ago. I'm going to read it to you in a matter of moments. City Council is currently deliberating, contemplating, brainstorming a city real estate tax rate increase. At the same time, city real estate assessments uptick 10%. So here's Kenneth Martin's post. He is a Charlottesville staple. I'm going to read it verbatim. Kenneth Martin on Facebook. With an average of about a 10% rise in Charlottesville City real estate assessments, and with raising the city's real estate tax rate 10 cents per $100 of value, many city property owners may be facing a 20% increase in actual real estate taxes they will have to pay next year. So far, residents have not asked of what educational value is this increase supposed to be funding with school reconfiguration. They would do well to listen to the city financial officer, Ms. Hamill. We're in this predicament. We have a massive school reconfiguration project that is on the horizon. And this school reconfiguration project is at the tune of $75 million to $100 million over a handful of years. That money's got to come from somewhere. So council, and this is a tough position to be in, council. I empathize with your plight. Council has a number of revenue sources. Most jurisdictions, their primary, is it all jurisdictions, their primary source of revenue is taxes on real property? I would say that's the case, right, Neil Williamson? Most jurisdictions, if not all jurisdictions, their primary source of revenue is taxes on real property, right? So, at the same time that assessments are upticking roughly 10% in the city of Charlottesville, government is considering a 10-cent per $100 value of real estate increase in the city of Charlottesville. That's a double whammy. Normally, both don't happen at the same time. But because this school reconfiguration project is so significant and so important to so many, and because it's $75 to $100 million, and if they're saying it's $75 to $100 million now, you know it's probably going to be more. Government is in a position of having to figure something out of where that revenue is going to come from. Now, in real time, in today's time, it's positioned by government as we got to find the funds for these public schools because that's what the populace wants, and that will create educational equity for the community, certainly those that are in an impoverished situation or living in a margin type situation. Basically what that means in a nutshell, if you improve public school quality, the folks that directly benefit from public school quality are the students that attend and not necessarily the students that are going to private schools, and that could close an educational gap. And that gap's been widened by COVID. Here's the concerning issue. If you pop homeowners on an assessment standpoint and on a tax rate standpoint, the people that truly get impacted by this are couples, families, individuals that are living on a budget. Often those are retirees. Couples, families, individuals that are living on the financial margin. below area median income, couples, families, individuals that are out of work looking for a job. And that is the regressive nature of tax increases and how they can expedite gentrification, creating homogeneous communities. The folks that don't necessarily care, they do care, but it doesn't sting them as much, about assessment increases at the same time of tax rate increases, are folks that have money, that have resources and deep pockets. So that's an example of the city of Charlottesville. Now let's tie this to Albemarle County. We're in this predicament. And here's the predicament we're in. Because of how Albemarle County is set up, only 5% of Albemarle is allocated to residential and commercial development. 5% of all of Albemarle County is earmarked for residential and commercial development. Only 5%. Because that gap is, because that number is capped at 5%, there's only so much real estate inventory that's being created. We're not getting rooftops built at the clip that the marketplace wants. Demand in Albemarle County is significant for all the reasons we know. It's beautiful, the restaurants, financial stability, UVA, breweries, downtown, music, hospitality, all the reasons we know Albemarle is sweet. Those reasons are driving people to want to live here. So because Albemarle is capped from a new development standpoint, government is left in this predicament. Do we continue to tax homeowners and real property because our budget every year, we need more money? Or do we find new sources of revenue, potentially the meals tax, food and beverage, or the transit occupancy tax, TOT? And if we increase the meals tax, this is government's thinking, if we increase the meals tax and the TOT, the transit occupancy tax, we can position this in a way that real property and real estate is having less of a burden of funding the jurisdiction. Now here's wherein lies the rub. Here's the rub. The meals tax, if you increase the meals tax, it's still Albemarle County residents, they're going to pay it. Sure, some of that burden of increased taxes will be covered by tourists. And the people you want funding your jurisdiction in a lot of ways are tourists, because they come here with open wallets to spend money and then they get the hell out of town. They don't tax our roads, our schools, and our infrastructure. We get their money for coming to the county, for the city, and then they leave. But where the rub lies is you and me, county residents, we still go out to eat. So it's a shell game. The shell game is in early June and early December, twice a year, when I pay my real estate tax bill or my real property bills, cars. It could be potentially not as bad. But on date night, and a business happy hour, on Sunday family brunch, our bills might be a bit higher. And that's the rub. The money's coming from somewhere. And it's coming from our pockets. And it's either coming from a real property standpoint or a meals tax standpoint. That's why I've said on so many occasions, one of the reasons why I'm running for Board of Supervisors, Scottsville District, is we need incremental sources of tax revenue that are currently not on the books. I've identified a couple of those. One of those is sports tourism and tournaments. Attracting regional tournaments to facilities like Dardental Park, or leveraging strategic partners like the athletic department at the University of Virginia or the Charlottesville Albemarle Soccer Organization, SOCA, and having them create the type of soccer tournaments that I grew up going to in Raleigh, North Carolina and Charlotte, North Carolina, 3 times a year with my brother, my mom, and my dad. And my dad would spend money on hotels, restaurants, and shopping. He was tight with his money, except for tournament trips like this, because he understood the importance they were to my brother and I in our development as not only athletes, but utilizing sports to figure out aspects of life, winning and losing. Another example is MacArthur Squash Center at the Boar's Head. I would love, and they got a phenomenal staff. Dean Russell is A-plus people, the pro over there. I would love to see regional, national, maybe even more global tournaments there that attract incremental revenue to Albemarle County. Why sports tourism tournaments are not prioritized, I don't know. Why new job and economic development is not prioritized, I don't know. Get more people to come to the area and set up shop. Why an action plan for Biscuit Run Park, massive acreage in the urban ring that is forgotten and underutilized, is not prioritized from a revenue and quality of life standpoint, I don't know. So why is this important to you, the viewer and the listener? Why is this important to you? Because guys and gals, you are very much on the cusp of seeing a meals tax increase. It's 4%. The maximum allowed is 6%, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is positioned damn near close to 6, if not 6% itself. And if we don't truly understand the magnitude of increased taxes, then you're not realizing the gentrifying nature, the nature of homogeneous and wealthy communities that are associated with tax increases. I'm going to welcome Steve Harvey to this show, who put this on my radar. I also want you to consider it from the plight or position of a small business owner, a restaurant. Restaurateurs deal with the ramifications of a meals tax increase when their customers see the bill at checkout time and they said, holy bejeebus, how is it this much money? And these restaurant owners are going through a potential meals tax increase at the very same time of labor shortages, of cost of goods increases, and as inflation is negatively impacting America. Has anyone gone to a restaurant, a fast food place, a quick serve, a QSR place, and said, golly, look at the price of this bill, and gotten frustrated with the business? The reality is it's not the business's fault. The business is responding to cost of goods increases, inflation, responding to meals tax increases, and labor shortages. I'll say it once and I'll say it again, and I catch a lot of heat for saying this. Taxing residents at higher clips leads and yields aspects that we don't want for our community's future. And they are often homogenous, wealthy, and how about I cut to the chase for you? Lacking diversity and white. I'm going to ask you a straightforward question. When is the last time you have walked the downtown mall and looked around at the customer base on a Thursday night or a Friday night or a Saturday night in downtown Charlottesville? I want you to do it. Downtown Charlottesville, Thursday night, Friday night, or Saturday night. Look at the customer base and see and ask yourself what they have in common. Go to Stonefield, shops at Stonefield, on a Thursday night, Friday night, or Saturday night, and see what the customer base at the shops of Stonefield have in common. And then ask yourselves, these shopping corridors, downtown, Stonefield, Barracks, the UVA corner, and West Main Street, are your 5 primary shopping corridors. 29 North is just too huge to call it just one corridor. But Stonefield, Barracks, West Main, UVA, and downtown are your primary shopping corridors, niche ones in the city and the county. Ask yourself what the 5 have in common. Johnny Ornalis owns a couple restaurants. He's watching the program. Jerry Miller, add to the tax increase, the food costs also jumping, and everything jumped up 15% this week alone. He owns 2 restaurants. His family owns many restaurants. His family tree. 15% alone. Mark McKinney, Crozet. Government's response is, but we didn't raise tax rates. It's the best scheme. Raise property value and not rates, or decrease value and increase rates. The consumer still ends up paying more. UVA athletic programs would generate a massive amount of tax revenue. ACC tournaments. The easiest thing to tax is property. Everything else is consumer-based, which allows them the choice to purchase or not. Well said, Mark. I've shared the survey on all the comments on every social platform you're watching upon. And we've added LinkedIn live streaming to the program. Neil Williamson has got a fantastic graph that I just retweeted on my Twitter account. He says, Albemarle fiscal year 20, other non-property taxes totaled $54,682,000. Meals tax is 14% of that. TOT is 4% of that. The source is the Free Enterprise Forum. Most jurisdictions' primary revenue stream is property taxes. Most jurisdictions' primary expenses is K through 12 schooling. Neil Williamson on Twitter. I just retweeted all those, Sir Neil. We're going to get Alex Urpí here in a matter of moments on the show. CEO of Emergent Financial Services. If we continue to ask the people living in our county or city for more money to run the county or the city, eventually we're going to, quote, price out, end quote, those that are living on a tight budget. And those that are living on a tight budget are our retirees, our grandmas and our grandpas. Those that living on a tight budget are our fresh out of college millennials and younger. And those that are living on a tight budget are those that are out of work. The ones that are not living on a tight budget are the upper middle class and upper class demographics. And if the plan is to create an area of just upper class citizens and to be Greenwich, Connecticut, or San Francisco, good Lord, that's not even a good example anymore because San Francisco has got its own problems. Let's call it Greenwich, Connecticut. Then we are on that track. If the plan is to do something diverse and different, then we need new sources of revenue. And Biscuit Run Park, an action plan to monetize it, is a great example. And same with regional or national or global athletic tournaments in this community, where tourists come, give us their money, and get the F out of our town. They don't put kids in schools. They don't ride on our roads. They just give us their money and leave. Richmond has figured that out. And Richmond has significantly more advantages than we do because they have a boatload more rooftops to tax. The county and the city are limited. 2 Mondays ago on Real Talk with Keith Smith, we learned 2 Mondays ago that were 37 active listings in Albemarle County alone. Only 37. And our red tape associated with running this government has prevented rooftop development, new development. So if we can't build any more roofs and the yearly budget upticks, where's the money going to come from? Shouldn't we say enough, stop taxing me and find some other ideas that are innovative? Am I missing this? I'll reach out to you, Steve Harvey, about this after the program to welcome you on the show. Let's get Alex in the mix. Alex Urpí. Alex, we're ready when you are, sir. This is a frustrating dilemma. If you can't tell. It's such a sensitive. Alex Urpí is the CEO of Emergent Financial Services, CEO Emergent Financial Services. I believe we are currently, Jude, I don't know if you can confirm this or not, also live streaming to his personal Facebook page. If you can give me a thumbs up about that. We also want to get you in the triangle of content, the isosceles triangle of content.
Yep.
Judah Wickower, our director. First, good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon, Jerry. How you doing?
Okay, so I'm doing very well. We are live streaming to Senor Urpí's LinkedIn page. All right. So
Nice. Facebook.
Oh, Facebook. How about LinkedIn? Okay, so we're going to apply for that. We're streaming to mine right now. We'll apply for that to make it happen.
Nice.
We are live streaming to
I'm
mine.
liking the new tattoo on LinkedIn.
Thank you. I got 6,018 followers on LinkedIn. Most of them, I'd say 80% of them are business folks in the city of Charlottesville.
Nice.
So they're seeing this, a new demo of listeners and viewers. All right, where do you want to begin with this?
Oh, it is a tricky one, and I think it's two. These are always two areas because I think you're exactly right in the point of, given the way that the taxes are collected in our area, they're pretty much all regressive in a sense, and the one, even though property tax isn't technically regressive, I think it's important to keep in mind it's taxing an illiquid asset. So if you think about it, if I'm taxing, and what I mean by that is it's not easy, you can't sell a piece of your home, right? So if you tax me on $100,000 that I have in the bank, and you say, Alex, you got to pay me 10% of this money, I take 10% of that $100,000 and I give it to the government. If you tax me on a $100,000 home, I can't go and say, I think I'm going to take $10,000 of this home and use it to pay you. It doesn't work that way. I only have the home. So when you tax, particularly if you're taxing people that bought their homes a while ago, right? So let's say you bought your home before this massive spike in home valuations, right? And you have a certain income. You bought your home because you thought you could afford it, and now suddenly your property tax goes up double from two directions. First is the appraisal of your home just spiked, and second, because they're going to increase the rate. You're sitting there saying, where do I get this extra money? Where do I get the money to pay this property tax? My income hasn't changed. My expenses haven't changed, and I cannot sell it's not like you can sell 2 walls of your house and say, here, let me sell these 2 walls, I'll keep the other 2, and go from there. Like, you have an illiquid asset, so all you do is you then force people, the worst scenario is you force people to have to sell when they don't really want to, and move further out where they can basically afford to live and own the home. So that's a major problem. I think sometimes we look at property taxes like, well, it's not technically regressive because typically if you own a bigger house, you're richer.
Yeah, and technically, if you increase taxes, it's an indicator on property that real estate values are growing up, so that potentially adds to your portfolio wealth. But to your point again, is that this garage door that just became more expensive, cannot be taken to pay the electric bill.
No, exactly. So yes, your net worth has increased if the value of your home increases, but it's not easily accessible increase in your net worth. And I mean, we really don't encourage people to say, yeah, go out there and borrow on the basis of your home to try to pay your property tax. I think it's another recipe for disaster that we don't want to go into, but you're basically, yes, it's a progressive tax, but it is a tax that most heavily hits the middle class, I would say, the middle to the lower middle class. I mean, if you're extremely wealthy and your income, you have a high income to match your high net worth, then an increase in your property tax is something you can pay. But if you now have an increased net worth, but your income hasn't changed, you're sitting there and saying, where do I come up with these funds to do it? And you force people out of the area.
Earl Smith watching in Scottsville. Earl, we love when you participate on the show. He has this comment. You are correct. My property assessment dropped by $1,000 a few years ago, and now with the new assessment, it's been raised by $1,300. They do that on purpose. Mark and Crozet, we need to also factor in the cost of higher education into this issue. There is an upcoming generation whose student loans will exceed a mortgage payment. People are making the decision of not buying houses, not getting married, and starting families because of these student loans. So property taxes will continue to increase to make up for the loss of consumers purchasing homes. Alex Urpí.
Oh, it's another excellent point. I mean, the student loan issue is definitely delaying what you would see in terms of when people buy homes. And I think the issue, though, is that the promise of those student loans is not quite panning out. So in other words, for years, I think a lot of
go to college, get a great job.
Go to college, get a great job, made $1 million. I can't tell you how much I remember from my high school days, how many times I heard the refrain, you make $1 million more as a college graduate than as a high school graduate. You make $1 million more with a college degree than a high school degree. But what everyone always left out of that is that's the average, which means you have some people who are making multiple $1 million more because they got a STEM degree and they're now doing some major engineering work. And then you have people that are making much less than $1 million more because their degree is not in STEM. Their degree might be, who knows what it might be in English, it might be in a certain studies program, it might be in
nursing,
it might be in nursing,
criminal justice,
it might be
yeah.
There's so many degrees out there that are all on a scale, and it depends on where you live, it depends on what skills are in demand in your area. So that $1 million, if that doesn't pan out for you, right, you're now stuck with tuition rates that have gone up 300% in the last few decades, paying student loans on this, and you're never going to make up that mystical $1 million because you don't happen to be on that side of the spectrum.
Judah Whitcat, we're going to get you in the mix here in a matter of moments. Get ready. Okay, I'm going to try to be in the position of the jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you play devil's advocate. This is the jurisdiction's position. And I empathize with leadership at any jurisdiction. It's a thankless job. 50% of the people are going to hate you. The other 50% don't even care, or they're lukewarm. So the jurisdiction says this. Inflation, supply chain, labor shortage, cost of goods, COVID have all made Albemarle County more expensive to run. What otherwise was a $400 million yearly budget to run Albemarle County is now, whatever, 400 million plus multi-millions more. We got to make up that deficit or difference somehow. This is the way we can do it, and the way we always have, is taxing real property or taxing the meals or the transit occupancy tax in our jurisdiction. This is what we do. This is government.
No, and I don't dispute that. I think they're right. Obviously, they're in that bind. COVID is a little bit different, because a lot of counties did get some
Money
COVID
from the feds.
From the feds, and I think certain counties, had so much they didn't quite know even what to do with it. But that point aside, the rest of it, I mean, as we're a growing area, so of course those expenses are going to increase. I think the two issues, and I would actually go beyond even the jurisdiction and say this is something that I think that the people living in these jurisdictions, namely us in Albemarle and Charlottesville, need to be thinking about in terms of how are we choosing to spend the money that we are bringing in, right? And what I mean by that is, because I know the meals tax is supposed to go towards increased funding for schools, et cetera, but you sit there and say, sometimes I sit there and say, what's the ROI on our spending in schools? Because the ROI seems to have been decreasing nationwide for the last 20 years.
How so? Specifically, what do you mean
in terms
by
of,
that?
we haven't seen increased results in terms of how well our students are doing in STEM, how well our students are doing in reading and English and so forth, given that the amount of money that we're spending per student across the country has increased dramatically for the last 20 years. So I think at some point you have to sit there and say, okay, what am I getting for more money in public schools? Am I getting a better education for my children in public schools, or am I getting an education that seems to be getting worse and worse, but I'm spending more and more as a taxpayer? So sometimes you have to look and say, act a little more. I definitely understand the government is not a small business, right, or a household budget. But I think there are times when it can benefit local government to think a little bit more that way, in the sense of, if I'm a household budget, right, in my household, I don't spend all my money and then say, okay, how much money do I need to make this year to match what I just spent, right? Usually it's the other way around. It's like, okay, how much money?
You hope it's the other way around.
You hope it's the other way.
Yeah.
Like, how much money is coming in this week? I have to spend it. Okay, I spend it on this. I spend it on that. Maybe I have to cut back a little here to make my budget work. Like most families don't build our budgets of, here's all my expenses. Now I'll go figure out how to get the income. It's usually the other way around. Say, here's my income. Here are the things I need. You have your expenses you need to live, right? And then you say, okay, what I might have to cut down on this. I might not be able to do this year. I might not be able to do this. Because the average family can't just go out and forcibly get more income. I can't just hold up all my clients and say, hey, I spent a little too much last year. Give me some more money. It doesn't work that way. They'll say, no, thank you. I'm not paying you more.
So you're saying be fiscally more conservative with money if you're the government,
Yeah,
if you're the jurisdiction.
I think a little more responsive in the sense to say, all right, is there anything we're currently spending that we could tighten up, right? But in other words, my first reaction, it seems to me that my first reaction as a jurisdiction should be, before I go and put an additional burden on the people that are living in my county, am I using the funds being given to me effectively? And are there areas that I'm spending funds that really are not contributing much? The ROI, the return on investment on these funds is not really worth it. I'm better off cutting this on the expense side before I go here on the income side. And I know that the income side is as much as we're giving flack for raising these taxes, you could argue raising these taxes is less difficult than what you'd have to deal with if you tried to cut some expenses. In other words, if the city and county come back and
We're
say,
paying teachers less money, we're paying police officers less money.
or we're cutting this program
Yeah.
that you got used to, or we're cutting this program, but there's hardly anybody's using it.
That would create a firestorm.
Well, because it's the classic diffuse cost concentrated benefit, right? If you cut a program, right, that let's say you have a program that 5% of people are using. Those 5% of people are going to be really invested if you cut that program. If you raise taxes on a very large swath of people, each individual person is slightly less invested than you would be if you cut their favorite program. So I can understand that from the perspective of leadership in the county and the city, this may well be, they may be sitting there saying this is an easier political ask than to go to the budget and say, you know what, this program just is not panning out. Let's cut this one, right? I understand politically that it may be easier. As hard as it is to raise the taxes politically, it may actually be easier than the alternative. But I think part of leadership is to say what's actually best. In other words, do I know that everything on the books is really contributing right now before I go and ask people before I go and raise taxes and deal not just with people being upset that they're spending more money in taxes, but the long-term, as you've been pointing out, repercussions of doing that, which those long-term repercussions have less to do with money and have a lot to do with who ends up living.
Socioeconomic demographics.
Exactly. And how far do you want to push people out?
Neil Williamson, so Judah Wickower, you're going to jump in here in about 10 seconds, my friend. Giving you a heads up. Judah Wickower, if you want to go to the 3-shot. Neil Williamson's contributing on Twitter, and he makes the program better. I've retweeted now from 3 accounts. Neil, I'm going to give you, I'm going to retweet on another account here because I think this index deserves massive exposure. So if you go to my Twitter account, Jerry Miller Now, twitter.com/Jerry Miller Now, you will see a retweet from me from Neil Williamson, or you could just go to Neil Williamson and follow him on Twitter. The 2021 Local Government Spending Index by the Free Enterprise Forum. A spending index, this is a pretty robust, detailed white paper on government spending. Neil Williamson does this better than anyone. Schools and how the money is allocated, population statistics, essentially where the dinero is going, where it's flowing. J-Dubs, Judah Wickower, director of the program, a man who wears many hats. I think the title is Jack of all trades. Jump in here, amigo.
I mean, I totally agree with Alex. He's spot on with all this. When does government stop asking for more? And when do they decide to tighten the belt like the rest of us have to, deciding which programs are actively worth keeping and which are just bloat. And sadly, what we constantly hear about is once a government decides they need X amount of money, they never give it back. There's never, you never see budgets shrinking when it comes to government, whether it's local or or nationwide. There's never any belt tightening when times are tough. It's where do we get this money from? Who are we going to tax?
It's an expectation.
Yeah, It's an expectation, and we also hear about budgets getting rolled over or spent just so that they can ask for more money next time. It's like, oh, we would have had a surplus, but then we wouldn't be able to ask for more money next year, and that's just terrifying. I mean, this is our money, this is my money and your money and his money, and they throw it around like it's
endless.
Toys, yeah.
Like it's endless. Sarah Struckman watching on LinkedIn and engaging with the program. I have mentioned this to Alex many times, Vanessa Parkhill and Earlysville. I've mentioned this to the closer Xavier Urpí. I've mentioned this to Nicholas Urpí as well. She says on the feed for you, what do you think she's going to say that I've mentioned to you many times?
No, I'm blanking.
Alex, would you please run for Board of Supervisors?
Oh.
What district are you in?
So I'm in Jack Jewett. Is that a
Jack Jewett?
Jack Jewett.
Okay.
That's where we go vote.
The Jack Jewett district. I've emphasized this many times. I think he would be fantastic on the dais and in that role. And I think he and I would work very well together. And in fact, I should introduce you to Steve Harvey, who's running in the Whitehall district.
Oh, sorry.
Steve Harvey is a guy that has some very unique ideas as well. We'll see if we can welcome him on the show. Okay,
I think I've met him. I think he was once kind enough to bring from a congressman a letter recognizing one of the winners of our Chuck Lewis Passion Award for Forward Adelante.
Okay.
I recall him bringing it to us and so that we could share it with our winner.
So what do we go? Okay, what do we do? What needs to happen here? Diantha McKeel, the current representative in the Jack Jewett district, where someone who I have tremendous respect for, Alex Urpí, lives. We need more money to run this county. And one of the aspects that is being overlooked in this entire debate, and I'm getting you in the mix as well here, J-Dubs, is, and this terrifies the the shit out of me. I used a profanity right there, okay? Because it really scares the hell out of me. Technology is making it where Albemarle County residents can live in Albemarle County and work for businesses that aren't located in Albemarle County. So jurisdictions are going to lose revenue from businesses that otherwise would set up in Albemarle County that are no longer setting up in Albemarle. So you can we have 24 tenants in this building. One of the tenants, you know who it is, the attorney down the hall, very nice guy, tall guy, very likable guy, works for a law firm in DC, but lives in Albemarle. And he's working from that office from an ISP. That law firm is not paying taxes here.
Yeah, there's no business property tax.
No, but his 3 kids are going to Albemarle County schools.
Yeah,
So the overhead associated with his family earning this Northern Virginia income, DC income, is not necessarily trickling over to the jurisdiction. That scares the bejeebus out of me. Because if you can work from an ISP and live anywhere you want, in particular Northern Virginia, DC, why would you do the rat race of living up there when the real estate is so expensive, when you can just come in here for 25% less the real estate and a more affordable cost of living, and then your money goes further and your kids have better quality of life? The jurisdiction suffers there. And that trend is going to magnify as technology continues to innovate. Anywhere you want to go on this topic, gentlemen, you start thinking about this one. Urpí, jump in here on you. Oh, Judah's ready to go.
Go for it, Judah.
It's similar to something I was reading about recently about, I think, especially Amazon, but other big businesses who seek out, one, they seek out opportunity zones, and 2, they're always looking for, big tax breaks, like landmark building guy. And the problem is that...
or landmark building once, but has not gotten.
Right,
yeah.
But he's looking for them.
Yeah, he's extorting the city to get the break, and that's why he's not doing the development. He says, I will do this. You make a great point. I will do this when you give us the tax breaks. If not, you suffer with this.
The problem is, you give people like that tax breaks, they've got the money. But where does the tax come from then? The tax comes from the rest of us. So we end up paying for these things. And... I don't think I want to get into the opportunity zone portion of it, but it's a similar thing where it's just a way of hiding your money so that it doesn't go to taxes.
Alex Urpí, you jump in here after I relay some comments from viewers. Mark, you're making us better today. Bill McChenzie, we'll get to your comment as well. Of course, Xavier Urpí says, shrink the government. Xavier, we know. Mark says this.
Isn't that what we all say?
That would be great. $70 million of Albemarle County's budget, excluding the Albemarle County public school portion, goes directly to employee salary and benefits. The county's portion of the budget is $314 million fiscal year 2022. Bill McChenzie, every time the school board looks for cuts, it goes after the music and the arts within the school. That's to Alex's point over there. Anywhere you want to go on this topic, Urpí?
And that's a tricky one, because I think we notice this all the time. You have to be, I think that's why it takes some good leadership and also good watchdogs, because we see this all the time. Like I don't know if you recall, every time, this happens at the federal level too, which is why I'm using this example. I don't know if you notice, every time there's a federal shutdown, right? The first thing that gets closed is all the national parks. And they'll actually take the time to pay people to put the barriers around parks that normally don't have anyone there. It's not, in other words, I remember in DC, because you've got the Vietnam War Memorial up in DC. I recall when they would put the barriers, so you pay people to put the barriers on a memorial that normally has no one sitting there. It costs you nothing to run. And the reason they do that, of course, is that when you come to a bureaucracy and say you need to make cuts, the first inclination is, well, if I make cuts that people will really feel, right, they won't come back to me and ask me to make cuts anymore. In other words, I could cut this bloat, but I kind of like this bloat, so I'm going to cut the music teacher, because people are going to say, how did you cut the music teacher? I won't ask you for cuts anymore. So you have to...
It puts a face to the dilemma.
It's that, well, in other words...
It humanizes it.
Well, in other words, and not just humanized, in other words, you're cutting things you probably don't need to cut because you have bloat somewhere else, but in order to keep the whole budget, you cut something painful for people. This way they won't ask you to cut anymore. It's a manipulation of the budget, and I think you always have to be cautious of that, because when you do have a large bureaucracy, of course, everyone believes that their program is vitally important, is the most important one. And as Judah pointed out, there is that perverse incentive of, I need to ask for more every year in the budget, because and I need to spend it, because if I don't spend it, I don't get to ask for more next year. If I ask for 10 million and I only spend 8, leadership might come back to me, the board of supervisors, and say, well, you only got to get 8 this year because you didn't spend 10. And you'll say, so I better spend this 10 so that I get 10 again next year, or I get 11. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of, I think, incentives in there that make this difficult, but I think that's why you just need the transparency and someone to go through and walk through this and say, okay, what's giving us back investment in the community and what's not? I mean, to the point of the long-term trend, of people coming in from basically living here and working elsewhere, that's a more difficult challenge, I think, to deal with, because you have, and I think that pushes up, that's where you get a lot of this push up in real estate, in the sense of you have people who get incomes much larger than you would normally expect for our county. They come in here because they're getting DC level income, which would normally provide a certain, certain way of life up in DC, and now you come here and your way of life can now be much higher.
Yeah, you're wealthy.
You're much wealthier than you would be 2 hours north of here. And so unfortunately that then puts upward pressure on everything else. That's a more difficult one, I think, for the county and the city to deal with, which may involve, at some point talking with the state and saying, hey, you know what, how do we divvy up? Because really the only solution to that is income tax, essentially.
It's income tax, or it's, so Amazon struggles with this, or Amazon's fighting this, and states want a cut of the money, where you buy something from Amazon and you're not susceptible, Amazon's not on the hook for taxes associated with that online purchase, like a brick and mortar in Charlottesville would be on the hook for. So a good example is someone in Charlottesville buying something from Amazon, shipped across the country, wear and tear on our roads to get that product there.
Who gets the taxes?
Yep. So maybe I don't think anyone's figured this out, but maybe the way you manage that, the Zoom town mentality, is somehow figuring out a tax on work being done through ISPs. Like if you're doing work on a firm from, I don't know how you would track that.
It's so hard to think about it. How would you figure out what percent of a company?
To track IP addresses then.
Exactly. Well, even if you could, like you'd say, all right, even if you found a company, you say, all right, half your workforce is working out of Charlottesville, but you're a DC company.
How do you quantify output?
How do you quantify the revenue? Like, how do you say how much of your revenue is being generated out of a Charlottesville office versus a DC office?
Yeah.
Very difficult to figure out.
Yeah. Judah, what do you jump in here on anything you want to cover here?
That is a tough one. I mean, you've got people now working over Zoom all over the place. And you're right. As a business, if you don't need to have physical bodies in your building, why keep your business at some place that's charging X tax rate when you can go, like set up a tiny little, like the owner. Maybe the owner just needs his own office or a physical address. So buy a place in the cheapest area you can find, and keep as much of the profits for yourself.
Judah Wickower dropping bombs here. Nicholas, your brother, ancient governments used to have the same problems as today, but they were held accountable by citizens and leveraged the power abilities of government with business to generate income. Government officials don't want solutions. They want to utilize their power to punish the average American. Suffering creates passion, which generates votes.
Oof. It is a classic of the cynical tradition there. But I mean, this is not, he's right. This is not a new problem, right? As technology and the economies change, you can no longer rely on old methods of taxation, because you're now causing changes to occur. I mean, think about it. Pushing people away who've lived here and who worked here. If you push a small business owner out of Charlottesville because you've raised his property tax, who's buying that house? You're only generating more of the same, but if someone's going to buy that house who's probably working out of DC,
No doubt.
and now you're just perpetuating, you're speeding up this process.
I've given the example on the show. There's a neighbor where I live that sold a townhome that has 1,400 square feet in Northern Virginia for like $1.2 million. Came down here, scooped up a house in the 800 range, had, after renovations, $300K left over in the bank.
Probably twice the square footage.
Dude, it was like, it's over 5,000 square foot
Five
house.
times the square
And,
footage.
and now both are working from the basement offices. Both mom and dad. That literally, I've seen it firsthand here. How about this from Xavier? I love your perspective, Xavier. You know I do on this program. The closer, Xavier Urpí. How about cutting a determined percentage from every department? Any thoughts on that? Reduce income taxes and increase consumer spending, tax non-essentials. Thoughts?
I mean, that's where you kind of have to start to try to force people and then really look at beyond that. My suspicion is the amount that you'd have to do across each budget would still, I agree with him, but you'd have to still then go further to get what you needed and say, okay, what programs are just not generating
Because if you
return.
cut from every department, you can only go so far without making the department non-functional.
Exactly. I mean, in other
Is that
words,
what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You could take 1% out of every department, but at some point you can't hit 10% out of every department.
then it
there
can't
may be
operate.
there may be one that's not operating with bloat, but that is actually operating lean, and now you're penalizing them. So at some point you need to find the ones that are saying this is not giving me return to the citizens of what we had hoped that it would do, ergo its budget is not necessary.
So this will be in the news cycle, guys, of every media outlet, and I would imagine as early as this week after the show. I've shared the survey on all social media platforms. Here is the survey in a nutshell. Business survey on potential tax increases. The survey ends the 4th of February. This is completely flown under the radar of pretty much everybody. Albemarle County, I'll read verbatim from it, then you let us know what's going on with Today Mañana. You offer any closing thoughts and perspective as well. Here's the copy from the survey. The words equals copy. Albemarle County is currently in the planning stage of developing a budget for fiscal year 2023, which begins July 1 of this year. One concept being explored by county staff is a rebalancing of the county's revenue mix, which is currently dominated by real property taxes. That's real estate vehicles. The board directed staff to solicit input from affected industries on the potential impact of increasing the tax rate for food and beverage, that's the meals tax, and the transit occupancy tax. Those are hotels, motels, Airbnbs, and bed and breakfasts. The food and beverage tax is paid by residents and visitors alike, and the TOT is predominantly paid for by visitors. The current meals tax rate is 4% with a maximum taxing authority of 6%. So you could potentially see a 50% increase. That's startling. That is startling. The current TOT is 5% with a maximum rate allowable, which is not defined, but 2% must go to tourism. So TOT has no cap. Good God. The maximum rate allowable is not defined. TOT is not capped. But 2% of TOT needs to go to tourism marketing. Closing thoughts from either of you guys with our traditional 145 on the horizon. It's 141 now.
Okay, TOT, there's no cap, but let's face it, we all know there's an economic cap.
Oh, for sure.
You push people from coming,
Yeah.
they won't visit anymore.
Yeah, they'll stay in Fluvanna, Buckingham, Nelson, Louisa,
exactly.
or not come.
Yeah, so there is a cap.
Yeah.
They need to be aware there's a cap there.
I hope to God they know that.
Yeah, I'm hoping they know
Yeah.
that there's a cap there beyond which that's an issue. But
Because hotels are commodities.
exactly. I mean, plus they're replaceable. In other words, Charlottesville is a great place to visit, but it can be substituted for if it comes too expensive. Let's just put it that way.
100%. Well said. Thank you for acknowledging that. Any closing thoughts for you then today, Mañana?
Just building off of Charlottesville, it's a great place to visit. When does it become a great place that nobody wants to live and they just visit?
Yeah.
Well said, Judah Wittgauer.
That's nice. The Venice effect.
Price people out of the area, and okay, well, I hope you've got some pretty good attractions to bring people back to visit.
To visit.
Yeah.
not to live,
Right.
to visit. Judah,
Ouch, that's
Props.
good. That is good.
today, manana.
Today, manana, we got small business. Speaking of small business, we really want to push. We're going to have Amanda Delgado and Justin Tooley. They're from the Gym CVille.
Ooh,
So they're going to come on, talk about their business, just talk about what you can do there, the fun you can have. So we'll bring them on and have a little small business conversation with them.
Thursday, 10:15
10:15
a.m. Today, manana. Alex Urpí, Nicholas Urpí, Xavier Urpí, presented by Emergent Financial Services. I see the viewers and listeners respect this man's perspective. You think this perspective is good, you should hear his financial perspective and guidance. It's even better. Emergent Financial Services. Find them online and trust them with your wealth building, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Judah.
Always a blast to be on with you.
Excellent work. I'm Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille Show. Tomorrow, Kyle Miller, an entrepreneur and developer in Central Virginia, to offer perspective on the challenges and tribulations of what his job is like in our region. It is going to be an eye-opening interview, and I will reach out to Steve Harvey, who put this topic on my radar, potentially for an interview later in the week. Thank you guys for joining us. Hasta luego. Good job, Alex.
Fantastic. Loved it.
Excellent work.
That was a good one, Judah. That was a great.
Good finish. Good job.